Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Crystal, and today I wanted to talk about the books that I read in February. So 2024, now it's been a little rough for me. This year is just out to get me. It's been just a whole year with my kids just being sick. It's like every week my 4-year-old brings home some new illness. I have no idea. So I didn't film at all in February. Now it's March and a new illness has come. It's another like head cold that they have, but I can't wait for summer. I can't wait. I'm tired of the sickness. I'm tired of the cold. I want well, children. So I've read a total of 9 books, but I'm only going to talk about because that was a mixture of new releases and books that have been out for a while. I'm going to talk about the new releases in next week's video. So today I'm going to talk about the other books. And I read What the River Knows. I was really fascinated and I had high hopes for this because everyone was talking about how it's sort of like The Mummy. And it does give off a little bit of The Mummy vibes because it is based in Egypt. And you have this young girl, her parents are obsessed with Egypt. They go to Egypt, they stay, they work there for basically the whole year, and they only come home to see her very rarely, and she has lived with her aunt and her cousins. This has been going on her whole life. They've never really brought her with them. And she's wanting to go with them and to experience Egypt for herself. Well, she gets a letter that her parents have vanished and they're presumed dead in the desert. So she goes to Egypt completely on her own, doesn't tell anyone, and she meets up with her uncle, who she's only met once in her life, and it was when she was a small child. And things are not what they seem. Something's going on, she's not sure what, and she has a lot of questions, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her parents. So she meets up with her uncle, he tries to send her back, and she also meets up with her uncle's assistant, and that's who she kind of falls for. But it's her story of unraveling what happened to her parents, and also they are searching for Cleopatra's tomb. And the story, once she gets to Egypt, it's just a series of events at that point. I gave this, it was 3.5, 4 stars for me. I will read the next one. It ends on a cliffhanger enough to where I'm like, okay, I do want to know what happens in the story. But I guess it didn't live up to the hype for me. Like, it was a good story, but I don't know. It just fell a little flat. It wasn't exactly what I had thought or expected. I read Gothicana. It was my first dark academia romance. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. So we have Corvina. She's this young girl, and she goes to this academy. She gets chosen to come. It's a very closed academy. Only students who are chosen get to come there, and she meets one of the professors there, who is actually also like a student. He's I think he's doing his doctorate degree at the school. And so students and teachers are not supposed to have this relationship. She's 19, 20 years old, but they end up developing a relationship, and strange things are happening. It really gave off like Addams Family, like the Wednesday Netflix show, gave off that vibes. And I loved that show. But this was like as a college, like university vibe rather than like a teen vibe. I enjoyed it so much. There has been deaths at this academy, and she's just trying to unravel and see like what has happened, like what this mystery is before more people like die or vanish. And she also is psychic, so she can like hear people talking to her, like ghosts and stuff. I really liked the characters. I liked the story. It was a really good read. So for my first dark academia book, I was very happy with it because that's been my goal. One of my goals for this year is to actually read different genres and like subgenres of romance and see like what I like and what I don't like. And if other Doctor Academia is like this, then I have high hopes. I do. And then I read, it's a dark gothic romance, and it's One Dark Window, and it was a 5-star read. It was so unlike anything I have read before. I could not put it down or stop talking about it to everyone who lives with me. So we have, it's this girl, and well, let's just talk about the world first. So in this world, centuries ago, you had this king and you have a goddess. And the king kept going and making deals to this goddess. He wanted to bring magic to his people. He wanted to help them and make their lives better. And he wanted to do this in such a way that he had to make bargains for the goddess. So he would go to her and she gave him a deck of cards. And each deck of cards have like each card has a specific power that a person can use. And the king did not realize that every time, well, he eventually he did realize it, but every time he made this bargain, a piece of him went into, he lost something because it's all about give and take. And in the end, he ended up giving up his soul and losing everything in this bargain to try and help his people. And the goddess got really upset and angry with the people because as they gained more magic that she wasn't giving them, but the king was, they didn't rely on her or want her, and they just felt like she wasn't needed anymore. So she ends up creating this fog around the kingdom. And then the children started to become sick with like these fevers. Once the king falls, the other kings that take over, they start hunting down all of these children, and anyone who had this fever, they kill them because it's basically illegal to have magic unless it comes from the cards themselves. Centuries later, one of our main characters, she is one of these children who gets sick with this fever. The fog gets her, and so her aunt hides her. And when she's in the midst, this young girl, she's like 9 years old, of having this fever, she accidentally touches one of these cards that her uncle comes home with. And when she touches the card, she absorbs this piece of like the creature that's in the card. And so now she has this creature living inside of her, living in her head. And somehow it gets out that there might be a sick kid at this house. So the bad people come to like take her and kill her. And her aunt's trying to like buy her enough time to try and escape to the woods. And she asks the creature for help. He's like, look, I'll help you. And so she says, please help me. And she kind of blacks out. She doesn't know what happened, but when she comes to, there's like blood and dirt on her. But she got away. She made it. And then she grows up, basically with this other person living inside of her head. He is known as the monster. And he protects her. Like, that's what he does. He protects her. He talks to her. He kind of tries everything to keep her safe. Well, one night she is going back and forth between like her dad's house and her uncle's house because she's kind of been hidden away because her family hid her so no one would know that she ever had a fever, because to them she didn't have any magic. She woke up from the fever. There was nothing. She didn't tell anyone that she had touched the card or absorbed anything into her, but she can't touch any of the other cards because she knows that would be her power. So as long as she's away from the cards, everything's fine. But she can also see the cards. So if someone like has a card on them, each card has like a distinct color and she can see it. So she's coming back home and all of a sudden these highwaymen come and they attack her, but she doesn't know who they are because they're in masks. And they're like, we want your card. Do you have a card? Your uncle has cards. We know this. We want whatever. You know. So the monster saves her from these highwaymen. Well, she meets them again whenever she goes to visit the king, because everyone in the whole kingdom is supposed to gather at a certain point every year and celebrate stuff with the king. And she normally doesn't go, but she gets roped into going this time. And the highwaymen are there. They are close to the king, and they're actually working against the king because they don't like the king. They don't agree with him sacrificing and murdering innocent children and their families. So they want to break the curse, and they know that they need to gather all of the cards in order to do that. And the story just goes from there about her and this group coming together out of necessity and finding these cards in order to break the curse. I loved the whole vibe. It's very like dark and like fall, and I loved the characters. Oh my gosh, the monster, loved him. He was so awesome, and I loved his banter with the main character, back and forth. It was great. And then I liked all of the highwaymen and everything, every single one of it. After I read that, I was like, I have to read the second one. So I read the second one. It continues the story. I'm not going to talk about it because the first book leaves off on a cliffhanger. And I will say, if you read the first one, make sure you can get the second one pretty quickly because you want to read it. The second one, so I gave One Dark Window 5 stars, and I gave the second one, it is Two Twisted Crowns. I gave it like 4.5 stars. So it was good, but it wasn't as good as the first book. It kind of, in the first book, we really only get the main character's perspective as well as the monster, and then we also get one other point of view. But in the second book, we get point of views from other people, and it makes sense why we do. But I'm mostly just scared about the monster and the main girl. But it was interesting. It was still good. Very lots of political intrigue going on. Lots of stuff is unraveled and uncovered in the second book that you discover about the monster and who the monster really is. It was really great. Love that duet. And then I read Ruthless Vows. I read book 1 in January. Ruthless Vows is book 2. And it just continues Iris and Roman's story. Don't want to really talk about that because if you haven't read the first one, I don't want to do spoilers. But it was a 4-star read for me. The first book was 5 stars, but this one, it was lacking. We get more of the story of what happens with like the god and the goddess. And we get more of Iris and Roman's love story. But something was missing. There was just something that just didn't click. It just was a little lacking, where the first one was, I felt, had it all. And this one, there was just something just missing for me. But it was still a good read, and I enjoyed it. And that was all of the books that I read in February that were not new releases. So next week, I will talk about new releases. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.